So about a month ago, we had somewhere in the teens in terms of how much rain we had, and we really, I honestly wasn't believing that much rain was coming. They kept forecasting, you know, some days 3 to 5 inches, it seemed to, in a day, and it showed up, and it showed up with vengeance. And there was about 2 weeks of just doom and gloom, and you know, it was really heavy. Just watching, we had just planted our okra. We had planted a lot of our peppers. We had planted, you know, a lot of the spring crops. And just to sit there and watch all that rot and not really even have a chance, especially in this first year, this is what we're considering our grand opening year, we were very discouraged. And I really couldn't believe what we were dealing with after, because we dealt with this really bizarre winter storm for a couple weeks this year, and then we had a late frost in April, and that was a huge struggle, because in April, this is the greenhouse that we just stood up for our tomato house, for our tomatoes, and you can see the end walls aren't on. And so April 20th or thereabouts, we had this frost, and these tomato plants were already 1.5 feet tall in here, and out in the field they were about they were probably 2 feet, maybe 3 feet tall. They would not fit in the hoops with the frost blankets. And so we had to actually make long, we basically put the frost blankets over our trellising system out in the field to protect that. And so in here, we were in a panic rush to hurry up and get the plastic on. So we had the frame all up. And then that Tuesday morning, we were gonna put the plastic on, and the windstorm came, and we could not, I honestly just couldn't believe it. I was so worn out and just beat up from that. And so we ended up, you know, getting some more frost blankets for y'all and protected all of these tomatoes in here. And we made it through that, and that was pretty discouraging. But then that rain came, and I tell you, that took the wind out of our sail. You know, we're in the greenhouse here, and even in here, which we moved everything to raised beds this year, the back third of this greenhouse was underwater, and the plants down there, if you take a peek down there, you can see that there's still damage down there. And we lost probably 30% of the tomatoes out there in the field, and I'm grateful that we planted in abundance. We went a little crazy this year in terms of how many tomatoes we planted, but it saved us, because we were able to take those plants, which we thought we'd sell, but we didn't, and we were able to kind of replace some of them that we lost out there in the field, and even some here in the greenhouse. So it was a really tough spring, and we've learned a lot of lessons, and it was discouraging. There was moments of what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And but you know, we're kind of recomposed ourselves and had to say, well, what's the lessons learned out of this? And we definitely have a lot of takeaways, and some of that is, you know, making sure that we do plant extra. We always have extra plants on hand, and and also to know what you can control, what you can't control, because there's so much stress in watching the weather and when you're part of it, and when you can just say, look, we've got to do what we can do and let Mother Nature run its course, and just learn from it. You know, some things that we learned is watching, like literally in the storm, I was able just to go out periodically, and I'd watch where the rain would flow. Where's water running? Where's it standing? Where's it stuck? And where can we help it to start moving along? And so we were even out there in the middle of the rain sometimes with shovels and making trenches a little bit to get water to flow out of some of these beds here. And so there was a lot of lessons learned. There was a lot of loss in terms of momentum. We had a lot of momentum going this year. We were very hopeful that we were going to have, you know, X amount of yield per row on these rows of tomatoes, and we were going to sell all these plants. And so that storm really took the wind out of our sails, and so we're still recouping from that. Well, it's not as pretty out there either, and so you can go out there, and here we've got the wood chips and everything, and these beds and these plants are manicured, and as soon as you step foot out there, it gets really real. and you see weeds and plants that aren't as manicured as these guys, and because we just couldn't get into those beds for so long, and honestly it was pretty discouraging. I mean, like, there was mud up to our shins there in those raised beds out there, and just for weeks, you know, it was pretty discouraging. So, but we're gaining momentum back and recouping what we can, and taking a lot of lessons learned, and moving forward with that. Yeah, we started our adventures on this about probably planning it 3 years ago, maybe even a little 4 years ago, and on TV it looks really romantic. There's a lot of beauty in it, and I don't think a lot of them, whoever you may follow or something, you know, they don't capture all of the ugliness. You know, they don't show all the pains and waking up in the morning and seeing everything that you've worked for underwater, and a lot of the hardships that go along with farming. But when we were in Fort Worth, we dreamed of setting this all up and having this. I mean, like, just seeing these tomatoes like this is really a dream come true. But there was a lot of work just to get to this. We've had to learn to deal with nature and struggles. You know, when we get downpour, we get torrential downpours in Fort Worth. We get about 10 more inches of rain out here. But one thing I took away from living in the cities is they had all the water able to run off, and so there was even lessons learned from that, because you can see how on a larger scale how there is an importance and a need to get water off and away from the houses, from the buildings, off the streets, etc. And so translating that out to here, you know, you just, especially when we started with raw land here, and so not having a professional eye, not spending the right amount of money trying to do this cheap, you know, trying to do this myself, and to do some excavation, we're really paying for it, because we have water standing everywhere, and not being able to get that runoff like it should has really kind of reared its ugly head this year. But we're still grateful, of course, that we moved out here, and that we're chugging along with this dream of ours. We don't have any doubts. This is still what we want to be doing. This is what we like. This is what we want to do. And we're trading pain points. I think, you know, the cities, there was a lot of pain of living in the cities, if you will, kind of not keeping my hands busy enough. And so the stresses have changed from big city life to, you know, your stress out here is, what is Mother Nature going to throw at you tomorrow? Whereas in the cities, you dealt with, you know, honestly, for me, it was idleness. It was lack of fulfillment, lack of community. Even though we lived with hundreds of neighbors in our subdivided neighborhood, we still don't have the community we have out here, and we have really no neighbors, but yet we know every single one of our neighbors out here. And so we're still very much in love with what we're doing, and wouldn't go back to that. We miss our friends and all the amenities out there. You know, we get to live like kings and queens in the cities. We get to call up our you know, lawn service man when you want to have your lawn mowed, and you know, have your servants cook for you when you go to Cheddar's or something. And out here, it's a different story. You get fulfilled differently, and this is really satisfying work. I mean, it's tough work, but it's still very satisfying. And you connect with nature and earth, and it feels like, to me, everything comes alive. And even though you're discouraged at moments and it's tough and it's hard work, you feel fulfilled in what we're doing, or in what you're doing. And so we don't regret doing this, even though I may say that I've been discouraged and that Mother Nature took the wind out of our sail, and we lost all our momentum during the winter storm, the frost, and the Noahic flood type rains. We're still in love with what we do, and the discouragement is there, and it's left a major imprint on us for the good, I believe. It was a really good experience, but we're still pressing forward and moving on and happy. I might tell a little bit of our story of how we're even doing this, because people probably think that this farm is making us millions of dollars, but we have a little bit of a unique, I think, approach to how we're going about doing this. And I think just in the short time that I've been doing this, or we've been doing this, we've met quite a few people who have kind of gave up or slowed down, at least, their efforts on farming. And our approach is a little different, because I didn't just jump into this. I still have my corporate job. We pay some folks to literally run this, and so I'm out here in the mornings. I'm out here in the lunch hour, and because I work from home, and I'm out here in the evenings. But during the day, this is still a full-time operation, and honestly, to get to this, for this farm to be where I'd like it to be in terms of aesthetics and proper care, it would probably, even at this size, take 2 to 3 full-time people, and you know, it's just not feasible. And I know a lot of farmers out there are struggling with that. How do you employ people when the farm isn't generating enough money to support you and other employees? And so I took a different approach, and we're basically allowing the farm to pay for the employees while I work my job. And this is still a full-time job for me. I just squeeze it in the other hours, so it's in the hobby hours, I guess, is where it falls into, but it's still very much a full-time job. So, but that has allowed us to continue to invest in this. And so our plan is to, continue with this model using part-time employees. And this year, my wife is actually, this fall, next month, she's just finishing up homeschooling our 2 youngest. So we have 4 kids. And then they're actually going to be going to Trinity Christian School in town, and so that's going to free her up to work this full time. And then we're hopeful next year, or maybe even in 2 years, then I'll be able to come on board. So it's a really long, delayed gratification to get to where we want to be, because we really want to do this. My wife and I, we like to work together, and there's therapy in it. And to come out here in the mornings like this is really fulfilling, even though it's tough. You feel the full weight of the curse on the earth, if you will, when you're farming. But at the same time, it's palatable and fulfilling. I guess that's the best word I could find for it. And so with all things, we have to decide to, with every event that comes up in farming, you have to decide what you're going to do with it and how you process it. Is it a lesson or that you can take and move forward with? And that's where we are at. I mean, we're still so young that everything we're doing, we are basically taking as taking note how to continue to move forward, pick us up by our bootstraps, so to speak, and make the best out of it. These lessons are literally priceless. I mean, we could go take classes, thousands of dollars on various market gardening classes, but until you get in here and you start dealing with this, there's no way to get that imprint into you. You can take all this head knowledge you want, but until you have the imprint of a day in the life of a farmer dealing with Mother Nature, and whether that's the weather, whether that's bugs, whatever it is, you're just not going to be able to take those lessons and to be able to go up, level up, if you will. There's so much value in these lessons, and it's painful. I mean, I think I'd rather just pay for a class to teach me everything, but you can't do it because you have to go through this stuff to be able to navigate. Everybody's context is going to be different. And moving up here, we didn't really know that we were getting into this much rain and this kind of climate. It's pretty radical here in Paris, Texas. It's not bad. We get to grow seeds year round, but what we have to deal with to do that year round, that's the balancing act, and that's the lessons learned. And so we're going to continue to do that, and hopefully in the future dodge as many lessons now that we've learned from what I feel is a tremendous year of weather events and what Mother Nature threw at us. So I know during that last rainstorm, I started the mornings out just, pleading, mercy, God, mercy on this rain. And by the end of that 2 weeks, I was like screaming at him, mercy. Like I just, you can't do anything except for just, whine and contemplate life and decisions and things. So, but we persevere, and here we are. We're excited, and much like a lot of other farmers, already ready for next year. I am so stoked to incorporate what we've learned this year into next year. We've increased our tomato production probably by, I'd say, 30-fold from last year. And next year I'm ready to increase it again, even though we made a lot of mistakes. I ordered a lot more seeds than I needed. We planted heirloom varieties this year, which was not a good idea for young farmers. So if you're a young farmer, stick with what works. I'm telling you, we did, out of our 11 varieties we planted, this row right here is our only hybrid variety. And so I got on this heirloom kick this year thinking this was going to be the greatest thing in the world. And they are great, but if you are not an experienced grower, heirlooms are not necessarily the way to go. Maybe a couple of varieties to pick and choose from, but they have a mind of their own. They don't follow this nice uniformity, and so that was a huge lessons learned this year. And it's like I'm already wanting to start over next year so I can just stick with the goods, the pros, the conformity, the uniformity ones, and maybe experiment a couple here and there with some heirlooms that we can manage and wrangle and at least study and learn. So this year at the farmers market, it's been completely different. Last year, which seems like a decade ago, we're still kind of new to the farmers market and the whole concept, and obviously we were customers and had shopped there before and etc. But the dynamics this year has just changed. Like, we are very confident. We have our stuff together more. We are establishing more relationships with customers. Our customers are providing better feedback for us, and we're able to just continue to build on our base. Joe Salatin said this once, I think I may have butchered his name, but from Polyface Farm. He says that he would rather have 100 customers that spend $1,000 versus 1,000 customers that spend $100. I hope I said that right. And we've just found that to be true. We really see that our customers, the recurring customers are the one that are going to make us. It's not going to be the people that stop in that just came up from Dallas for a day to visit Paris, Texas to buy a thing of tomatoes. It's our recurring customers, and we've just been able to carry over the relationships from last year into this year, and word of mouth has helped too, and those customers have brought in other customers, and so it's promising. And we've extended this year to go into a couple more farmers markets. However, because of all this rain and just the weather events, we don't have enough produce even to hit these other markets. Once in a while, we'll go hit Sulphur Springs, and there's another market too that we've been invited to, but we just can't. We don't even have enough produce to hit them. So, but we're excited to go up there to meet these people and to start building relationships. And sometimes, a lot of times, I think farmers think, hey, I can grow stuff, but then you have to be able to sell stuff. And that was something that I too, I mean, I don't have a hard time talking to people, but you know, I just, you know, you don't worry about selling it when you're first starting off. Your whole goal is, how do I grow, you know, how do I work with this plant here to make it produce produce in this fashion? That was my goal. And then it was like, okay, now we have all this, how do we push this produce out? And some of it's come naturally, and some of it's we've had to work for in order to sell. And by that I mean, you know, you have to be part of social media to push out your produce and your whatever you're selling, if it's plants, etc., using social media things. And I completely overlooked that. But you know, this day and age, it's actually pretty easy to be able to be your own marketing manager with social media. But it's just something that we didn't really anticipate on having to do. But it's add one more thing to the resume and list of job descriptions as a farmer. If someone were to come up to me wanting to get into this industry at this level and asked for some pointers on how to go about, or what would be the best recommendation and approach, I think I would have to tell them to really count the cost. And I don't mean that in terms of just financial, but make sure that you really understand what you're getting into, because YouTubers can make this look like a romantic dream and that it's just a cakewalk. It's still very much work. And I think a lot of people jump into this thinking they're going to escape their corporate job. They're going to, you know, get out of their dead-end job or whatever the cliche is on that. If you have that mindset, you're just trying to escape something, and farming seems to be easy. It's not a reality. And so my main homework for them would literally just count the cost and make sure you do your research and interview, come out and visit farms and understand what it's going to be, and read some books, because there's just a lot you have to take in. And this may sound contrary to what I said earlier, but you still need to have that knowledge of what you're getting into. And that knowledge is good, and you can read books and you can do classes. That's going to help you make that decision. And then once you get there, you're going to have to really deal with the weather events and everything in life to help you really start getting that experience under your belt. So it's a combination of research and knowledge that's going to help you succeed. But you really would do well if you were to truly count the cost that it takes to fulfill your dream. And that's true of everything. It doesn't have to be farming. It's any dream you have in life. If it's not kicking your ass, your likely dream is way too small, and you won't feel that until you're right in the thick of it, questioning your dream and your desires to do what you're doing.